Get there. So this is show number 9 in this sequence of The New Way. The guest today is going to be Bridgette Dolgoff. And now I've put in the beginning of the tape so that when I go back, I'll know what this one was about. You have a glass of water on hand so that if something comes up, you can drink?
Yeah, I got a big bowl of coffee.
Good.
I know. I'm still waking up.
That's one of the...
Waking up in the new way.
Yep. It's one of the best things early on to get on the radio before you're awake and be talking. And that way you wake up into what you're saying. And for me, I work much, much better in the mornings. By mid-afternoon, my brain has turned to mush. And so I try and stay away from the brain to mush state on the radio. I'm also sharing my chair with Einstein right now. He has muscled his way in. He likes the radio show, and he likes to be on in the morning, so he's part of the cast of characters that we have. Good morning. This is Dr. Lenny Thyme. You are on The New Way, and here's something from the past from Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Enjoy it.
Fighting dragons and crossing swords with the people against the hordes who came to conquer. 7 o'clock in the morning, here he comes. I taste the warning, so amazed I'm here today. Seeing things so clear this way in the car on my way to Stone. I'm flying in Winchester Cathedral. Sunlight pouring through the break of day. Stumble through the door and into the chamber. There's a lady setting flowers on the table, covered lace, and a cleaner in the distance finds a cobweb on her face, and a feeling deep inside of me tells me this can't be the place.
No, this can't be the place. This is the place where you found yourself at, not the place where you expected to be. I'm Dr. Lenny Thyme. On The New Way today, I have with me Bridgette Dolgoff. She is an osteopath and a shaman. We are going to continue with the discussions we've been having this week on mind control. Welcome, Bridgette. How are you today?
Thank you, Lenny. Hey, what a great choice of music that you presented us with this morning. 7 o'clock fighting dragons.
That's the way it goes in the game we play.
Serious. Yeah, serious.
We have had a world that has just decided it wanted to stand on its head, do push-ups off its arms, and then flip over a couple times so that it's in a swirling vortex miasma of absolutely nothing important but everything urgent. It
Well, that's
goes.
the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, people as individuals seem to have an impression that they're not part of the collective group, that they're all individuals, and they are. And the collective group seems to have an idea that individuals don't matter anymore. So the individuals that make up part of the collective group are dissing themselves to begin with, and then they're leaving the focus of human scale and moving off to a scale where what matters to the human down under behind the veil isn't there. The veil has decided it would drop the illusion, and now we're starting to see reality for what it is, and most people live in fear. And if they could step into living in love, they could see all the beauty that's being revealed, but they're in fear. And you have some good anagrams for fear. We talked about those.
I used to have 3. I can't remember the third one right now, but the 2 main ones are FEAR, F, the F word.
You're allowed to say that on this station. I don't censor us.
Okay. All right. So it's fuck everything and run, which is what most people do. And then the other one is FEAR, false evidence appears real. And then I used to have another one, but I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what it was. That the thing about the collective is that I think that there is on an energy, if you want to call it the soul. I don't really call it the soul. It's more like a battery function. But where you were harvested from, your battery, was part of a collective, like one system, one being. There was like no individualization, until that you're put into some kind of structure on a planet. So I think there's this innate part of us, the energy part of us that wants to return back to that oneness, right? And then we're sold programming on the planet from all these channeled beings about, becoming one, united. But that's impossible if you're singled out into another programming apparatus, or like the human body, the biological material. It's a living machine. So you get put into that, and that separates you further. And then the programming, I think, keeps you from every once in a while, when you want to like be part of that whole unified system of the collective of where you came from. What happens is all these, mind control patterns like to start to pop up. And so there's a couple really killer stories, because sometimes you have to bring this down. I've listened to a lot of people who've talked about different kinds of mind control, but by the time that they kind of understand it and get it, they're talking so far up above people's heads that people can't even grasp it. And mind control, once you're removed, and I'll talk to you guys about a story about a ceremony that I did, and how I saw a lot of this in the programming and everything else, and I saw where we were, harvested from originally, our energy bodies, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but there's some down-to-earth stories. So I really got into, in the early 90s, Carolyn Meese hit the market, and she had, back then there were tape cassettes, and then she moved to CDs. She moved to CDs.
You got something on your mind there? CBDs?
Yeah, no, I got all kinds of Freudian slips this morning. No,
They're Freudian.
um, Freudian slip. You know
Yeah.
what you really mean?
Yep.
Okay, so anyway, when she came onto the market, she had this CD set or tape set that was pretty long, and she talked through it, and she taught a lot of stories. To this day, I think it's some of the most groundbreaking work ever in the physical world. Ever. I mean, next to like Carlo Castaneda, Don Juan, things like that. But she found out she was a medical intuitive, and she started to see things and understand and start working with people and helping them heal their disease. Without medications and without a lot of other stuff. But anyway, so it's called Energy Anatomy. People should really read that. Well, or get, I'm sure you can get like CDs off, the whole thing. You could probably get it off somewhere used. But for anybody out there, it's so worth listening. And there was no book. It was just a CD set. So then the next work she came out with was called Spiritual Madness, where this is where you bump up against your mind control, right? So all the control systems, in this reality are designed, they're multi-level, multi-dimensional mind controls. And we all have them. And some are dormant. And we think we're fine until we have a psychotic break. So she was saying that everybody had to go through what she called spiritual madness, which is, you go batshit crazy in order to bump up against all that. And it's like a death. And so then we go back to the ancient work, shamanic work or medicine work or whatever else, some of these ancient systems that, basically was called the shamanic death. And you had to, keep going through these different kinds of deaths. The shaman would take you through the process, in order to clear you and get you out of the predator. They call it the predatory mind. Don Juan Matus calls it the predatory mind that's implanted in us. And so, process of breaking it down and confronting it. So you have to bump up against, these walls. And so you see it in Hollywood a lot. You'll see like, Britney Spears totally go off the deep end, shave her head bald. Charlie Sheen completely lose it. Who was that? The woman who, what is her name?
I saw.
Gosh, I can see a photo of her, but
Yep.
I can't remember her name. But she had one of the most extreme, psychotic breaks with reality. They actually found her out in the middle of nowhere, like 4 states away from California in the desert, scrunched down and hiding in bushes. Because she was hiding, from the extraterrestrials and stuff like that. And they asked her how she got there. She had no idea. It turns out that people saw her walking, and running through different towns, right? Because, she totally lost her cookies when she was like dealing. Something happened and she had a trigger and it hit that, level of mind control.
Well,
so she
we see the cult
totally
of
cracked.
Yeah, we see the cult of celebrity going through this mind control stuff, and we can tell people like Katy Perry and Madonna are just controlled at times, and it's part of the deal they negotiate, apparently. But I saw this one weatherman named Al Roker, who's from the Today Show, go totally catatonic on camera one time. And it was like you could snap your fingers in front of his nose and he wasn't there. And
I call that, that's in the category that I call trauma narcolepsy. And it is so people have trauma insomnia, some people have trauma narcolepsy, and this is where, our systems just completely shut down. But this is the deal.
Do we all have trauma?
We all have this level of mind control in us. Because the thing is that our parents were in a mind control. So it becomes a genetic, hereditary thing that they pass on from their DNA and RNA into the fetus. So then the fetus is born that way. So it already has some structures and programs, let's just call it that, in their hard drive system that came from the hard drive before. Then they put the female under, huge amounts of stress, depending on where your culture is. If you're Black culture and you're living more in these hoods where there's lots of shootings and you're pregnant, you're under huge amounts of distress all the time. So you're basically, now your fetus, because of the perception of your world being unsafe, right? It's a war zone, even in America. The fetus, what happens is, and Bruce Lipton, I tell people all the time, you should really go and listen to Bruce Lipton. He has, I think you can watch some of the stuff for free on YouTube. And he has a four hour lecture called Conscious Parenting, but it's not just about conscious parenting. It's about how we work, and it also talks about the biology of the programming, right? Basically.
Yeah, his Biology of Belief is an amazing book.
Yeah. So he talks about how, like in mice and other studies of animals, when they're pregnant, they can change through using different kinds of stress tools what kind of mouse babies it's going to have. If they're going to have more frontal lobe, which is intelligence, be fatter, kind of more calm and peaceful, and have more frontal lobe abilities, which is the intelligence. Or if they put the, mouse under huge amounts of stress, then it develops the back part of the brain, which is a warrior. And when the mouse mother is stressed during the pregnancy, it basically causes the fetus blood flow, because it's connected to the mother. It can't look out and go, oh, mom, hey, you're overreacting. It has to go along with. And so its DNA and RNA and its cellular structure is being developed through stress tactics, which means that all of the blood leaves the brain and the torso under stress and goes to the limbs for flight or fight. It's like a natural thing. But can you imagine if the fetus is developing? So Bruce Lipton, says, basically, these babies that are born under this kind of stress, are being born as warriors and fighters. They're not going to be able to think outside of the box. They're not going to be able to use their intelligence. None of that is going to be happening. So you see more and more aggression. You see more and more younger people committing tons of crimes, because all the mind control goes all the way back. So it's in the biology. It's how the baby is fostered, as a fetus. It's the parents, what they've been through, what kind of mind control they're in, what they're passing on, hereditary. So you can see, you get about, 12 generations in, and you can see how you can be raising a lot of people who are just completely batshit crazy, who are totally whacked and are not going to even be able to have the skills to be able to be anything different than warriors and fighting and bombing and, crazy, suicidal and whatever else. And then, add on top all the other stress, wars, medical, vaccines, the food systems, all these other things are control systems. One day I was like in the grocery store. I had to go to Target for something, and I really hate going into big stores because I like to kind of send my energy out, like to hit a back wall so that I can get a kind of a energetic feel of the space, because that's what makes me feel comfortable, But when I go into those big stores, I can't get, I can't send out a broad enough signal. So when I go in there, I just feel like really raw and vulnerable. And it was so weird. I walked into this Target and I went to go get what I needed, and I was coming back and I was looking at the aisles and everything and how they all kind of migrate and how they're designed to keep moving you along, to keep shopping and, to kind of keep, addressing the reptilian part of your brain, which is, in the left hemisphere. And because it's constant stuff, and then the lizard part of you is like, oh, look, oh, look, oh, look. And it's like, it's meant to keep you locked in there and spending more stuff if you're not stable and grounded. And it's meant to, like, for you to lose yourself and only be controlled by their system, which means follow the aisles and then to the checkout. And
let me break you for a moment, and we'll hold that point where you're at Target. I once got lost in Colorado in a Walmart, and spent 2.5 hours in a brand new town in a Walmart with a friend who really didn't get it, who, and for 2.5 hours, I was in total panic because I was in a box store that I had never been in. Everything looks the same. I had no idea which door I had come in. And I was standing at the wrong door one that I hadn't come in on, while he was looking at the other door. And we ended up wandering around, passing each other without seeing each other. And after 2.5 hours, I was totally shot the day I arrived in Colorado. So I think that set the whole pace for that whole episode of that year. And we know it didn't work out very well. But now we're back in Target and your story.
Yeah, so I'm like, I just have one thing. So if I have to go into those places, I just hold what I have to get in my mind, and I head towards it. I get it, and then I get out. I mean, that's the bottom line, because I know what those places are like. So so I'm being herded. Now all the lines, I'm following all the alleyways, the aisles, to the main place where you check out. And then I was like standing in line, and I was like, I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, these are designed like feedlots where they put, cows that are like dairy or meat cows that they sell in the commercial industry. These cows are left in small pens. Then they hit a button, the electrical gate opens, and then the cow mindlessly walks out with all the other cows. They're herded into different aisles, that takes them to the place to get milked, and then herds them out of there, and there's no like human relationship. The cow isn't on soil, it's all concrete.
Yeah, I caught that one as soon as I saw the box store called Big Lots. That was the first image that went into my mind.
Oh my God, that's so like, oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah, it is. They tell us that.
Right?
You people aren't sheep, you're cows. The sheeple are cows
Right.
today. You want to play goats tomorrow? We'll have your kids for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's serious. And so this is how, a lot of this mind control stuff is like totally useful on us. And, the American language, English that we speak, not, proper English, is like one of the most dead, energetic languages there is. Like, it doesn't have any vibration to it. It's designed that way. And then they control it by having made up a lot of their own words that don't go back to any kind of, I mean, you could, but most people in America are really dumbed down and uneducated. And so they would never even go back to looking at a root of what that word, originally, maybe partially, like like friends of mine in Canada, they have a really good language. I mean, most of them speak French and, proper English and things like that. So they're speaking something and they know what the roots are, where it's come from. Where in America, we don't really know where these words come from. Plus, like say, for example, in Chinese, they have 20 words for love, all the different kinds of love. In English, we have one, love. And we're not even really sure what that means.
The Alaskans have 27 words for the word snow.
Yeah, so, language can be like something that kind of sets you free. So
but it's also
like Aramaic.
It's a program that they use on us, and I've noticed that in the spoken language, one letter difference sounds exactly the same, and you can't resolve it, but you know the context that people are using. So I can be talking about a slop machine, like Big Lots, where they just feed a lot of slop, and everybody heard the word slot machine like you pull in a casino, because the one word difference between the P and the T isn't resolvable the way people listen. So how words are used are just spells.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, it's the English language that we use in America is so small of what we're taught that your subconscious mind, where all the programming is just pulling, associating what it can associate with. And so if you're talking about a slop store, they can't really associate with a slop store, but they can slot store. They could because might be a casino.
Yeah.
So it's like the mind control and the limited amount of, um, Anyway, so I wanted to tell this story because this show's about. I wanted to talk to people about mind control and about that everybody is mind controlled, right? And I see it all the
Right.
time. I've been awake. I'm a star kid. I've been awake from day one. And I have been trying to figure out humans on Earth for a long time, like in trying to act like one and trying to pretend to be one. So, it was a lot less dangerous for me and a lot less complicated. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I'm rebelling against the whole thing. So I'm getting beat up for it, right? So there's a story about Bruce Lipton, and that he tells in, I think it's in the Conscious Parenting CBD, or he might tell it in the Biology of Belief too. But it's really profound because it's going to tell you, he talks about it in a cellular way, that because of based on, your hereditary, your parents, your environment, your genetics, all these different things, your perceived reality, even the economic scale in which you were born, your cultural scale, what can happen to you when you push the envelope, what can happen. So he talks about this kid who is just like this phenom, this piano phenom. He's just unbelievable, like just can play like nobody's business. Well, behind closed doors, he plays amazingly and practices, and there's no piece of piano music he can't play, and he's like just beyond anyone on this planet. But he's taught that he's like not good enough. His teachers and his parents are always telling him he's not good enough, all these other things, and all the other systems that were established before he was born that created his genetics and environment, and all these different kind of components together. So he gets like a chance to perform, and I don't remember where it was at. I think it was like at one of the main places in the world that everybody wants to perform at. It means like you have
Carnegie Hall.
Probably. So he gets invited to finally play there. And Bruce Lipton talks about the story about, it's packed. He chooses a piece of music that's really long and intense. I mean, like pounding keys and sweat. And he said there's this point in the story where the kid, he's like young, under 18, and he's playing, really well. And then there's this point where he decides he's going to break free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's this moment in the music where he decides, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm breaking free. But what happens is so then he starts pounding the keys and he's sweating and his body's moving and everything else, and he's breaking free of all of the control systems around him that's been developed in him before he was born and during his life. And he plays so unbelievably that people, when he stops, he actually blacks out and he flops down onto the piano, and he's totally unconscious. You have to take him out of there, but the people are so astounded at what he played, they can't even stand up to clap because they're just in shock. They've never seen somebody so amazing. It just blew everybody's doors off. But in the process, Bruce Lipton said that his cells, even though he pushed through his genetics, right, the DNA, the RNA, and the cells, and all these things that combine him, but all those things are still under control in your system, mind control, that he had to do so, and he had to break himself in order to do it. And so he actually really didn't speak or anything else like that after, and he was actually in a full-scale mental hospital for, like the rest of his life, because he cracked himself so severely to get to the other side that he just wasn't even a person anymore.
I've been there to the other there out there, and there is another side out there, and it makes me wonder if life and death are something that's not even real, and they tell us that myth in order to have us in a belief system of the fear that we talked about. And when you do break yourself and your paradigms are all lost, that's where the learning actually kicks in.